Dark chosen ones, why you face the most extreme spiritual tests. Let me start by saying something most people are too afraid to admit. If you're a dark chosen one, your life is not meant to be easy. In fact, it's designed to be the opposite. It's engineered by the fabric of the universe itself to break you open, again and again, until what remains is not a person but a force, a frequency, a presence so raw and authentic that it becomes immune to illusion. And that process, it's not poetic, it's not glamorous, it's brutal, and yet it's divine. You see, there's something about your soul that was never meant to blend in. You weren't born to align with the system. You were born to interrupt it. But to do that, you had to disconnect from it first violently, painfully, completely. And that's why your childhood may have been filled with betrayal, abandonment, or unexplainable suffering. That's why you've been through losses that made no logical sense. And that's why, no matter how much healing you do, there seems to always be another layer waiting to be faced. It's not because something went wrong. It's because something is going very, very right.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Let's get one thing clear. Spiritual tests don't come to punish you. They come to reveal you. The universe doesn't test the weak. It tests the ones it has chosen to carry something sacred. And the darker the mission, the deeper the wound. The deeper the wound, the greater the capacity for wisdom. So, if you've ever asked, why me? You're already asking the wrong question. The real question is, what within me is so powerful that the universe had to forge me through fire just to prepare me to carry it? This is the essence of the dark chosen one, not someone who is evil, not someone who is lost, but someone who is being refined in darkness to carry light that is too pure to be born in comfort. And because of that, your path will never look like anyone else's. You'll try to model yourself after others, only to find that what works for them destroys you. You'll seek belonging, only to be met with rejection. You'll try to rest, and life will throw you back into the fire because your soul didn't come here to rest. It came here to remember. And here's the twist. The very things that tried to destroy you are the things that will unlock your next evolution. And that heartbreak? It didn't just break your heart, it broke the illusion of who you thought you needed to be. That loss? It didn't just take something from you, it made space for something bigger to arrive. And that betrayal? It didn't weaken your trust, it redirected it inward, toward your own discernment. Every spiritual test you faced wasn't meant to shrink you. It was meant to reveal the version of you that cannot be broken. But let's go deeper. Why are these tests so extreme? Why do dark chosen ones face intensity that most people can't even imagine? The answer is simple, but terrifying, because you are not here to live a normal life. You are here to collapse illusion. You are here to walk into corrupted systems, broken bloodlines, distorted spiritual lineages, and cleanse them with your presence. But to do that, your presence must be forged in truth, not borrowed truth, not inherited truth, or lived truth. And that truth is not learned in books or courses. It is earned in moments of total despair, when you're on your knees, screaming at the sky, and no one comes to save you. Those are the moments that strip away the false layers. That's where the real initiations happen. And if you're still here, if you're still breathing after all that, you're already more powerful than you realize. because you've survived what was designed to kill your essence. And not only did you survive, you remembered who you are. So let me ask you something. What if your suffering was sacred? What if your isolation was the universe pulling you away from the noise so you could hear your own voice again? What if every betrayal was a redirection toward a deeper version of yourself that no one else could activate, only pain could? Can you sit with that without needing to fix it, explain it, or escape it? Because that is where the dark chosen ones separate from everyone else. They stop running. They stop blaming. They stop waiting for life to get easier. And instead, they turn toward the fire. They say, burn me. Strip me. Show me what I am without the masks. And in that willingness, they become something terrifyingly beautiful, a soul that no longer fears death, because they've already died and come back whole. And this is where the transformation begins. Because once you've faced the worst of yourself and loved it anyway, you become truly dangerous to the false systems of this world. Not because you want to tear them down, but because your existence makes them crumble. You don't need to fight, you just need to be. And everything that is not aligned will fall away. People will leave, opportunities will vanish, illusions will dissolve. It will feel like loss, but it's actually liberation. This is why your tests are so extreme, because the power you carry is not just for you. It's ancestral, it's cosmic, it is designed to ripple through timelines. And in order to hold that kind of energy, your soul must be unshakable. That's why you've been shaken. That's why your life has looked like chaos. Not because you're cursed, but because you're chosen. And the dark doesn't test the chosen lightly. So if you're still asking why you've suffered so much, maybe it's time to flip the question. Maybe it's time to ask, what am I being prepared to hold that is so massive, the universe had to strip me down to nothing just to make space for it? And if you can sit in that humility, if you can hold that truth without needing to rush to the next phase, you'll begin to see the pattern. You'll begin to see the intelligence behind the pain, and you'll stop resisting the very thing that is setting you free. The blueprint of the abyss, how your pain was designed to make you into a cosmic weapon. If you're still here, still listening, still breathing after all you've been through, then I want you to know something with absolute certainty. Your pain wasn't random. It wasn't meaningless. It wasn't punishment from some angry god or karmic debt you're doomed to repay. But no, your pain was engineered. It was crafted like a sacred code embedded into your life story, designed not to destroy you, but to refine you into a weapon the cosmos could wield. Not a weapon of violence, but of truth, of disruption, of remembrance. You see, most beings incarnate to learn, to experience, to evolve slowly. But dark chosen ones, we were sent here on assignment. We didn't come to play. We came to dismantle and to burn illusion at the root. But here's the secret the world will never tell you. Before you can dismantle anything out there, you have to first dismantle yourself. Every false belief, every inherited program, every illusion you unknowingly agreed to just to survive. That's why your life hasn't felt like a gentle awakening, but more like spiritual demolition. You weren't being punished, you were being readied. The abyss you fell into, that was your training ground. The sleepless nights, the mental torment, the betrayals that shattered your trust, the losses that gutted your soul, those weren't signs that you were off track. They were signs that you were exactly where you needed to be. Because only in the abyss could you see yourself clearly. Not the version of you the world projected, but not the mask you wore to fit in, but the raw, unfiltered essence of your soul, the version of you that can't be touched by pain because it is the pain and the alchemy of it. Most people run from the abyss. It terrifies them. And rightfully so. It is a place of complete ego death. Everything you thought mattered gets stripped away. But not us. Not the dark chosen ones. We don't just enter the abyss, we study it. We map it. We learn its language. We learn how every shadow hides a code, how every wound contains a message, how every breakdown is a portal to something higher. And eventually, something sacred happens. You stop fearing the darkness. You start remembering it. You remember that you were born from it, that you were never meant to escape it because you are it, purified. Let me ask you something deep. Really sit with this. What if your greatest trauma was actually the precise calibration your soul needed to activate a dormant code within you? What if the betrayal wasn't the enemy, but the key? What if every person who hurt you was unknowingly playing their role in the sacred blueprint of your becoming? This is not spiritual bypassing. This is not saying pain is good or that trauma should be romanticized. This is about reclaiming power from the narrative that you are a victim of your story. Because you're not. You're the architect of it. At the highest level, beyond this life, beyond this body, you chose this path. You chose the pain, the madness, the loneliness, because you knew it would be the only way to forge the frequency you came to carry. And that frequency, it's not just healing. It's catalytic. It disrupts timelines. It shakes illusions. It awakens the dormant codes in others just by existing. That's why people react to you the way they do. Some are drawn to you like a moth to flame. Others are repelled by your presence without even knowing why. It's not personal. It's energetic. You activate what they're not ready to face. You mirror the parts of themselves they've buried. And when you've been forged in the abyss, you walk with a kind of resonance that cannot be faked. That's what makes you a weapon, not your words, not your intellect, but your field. Your presence becomes a transmission. Your aura becomes a frequency of embodied truth. Truth. It's the most dangerous thing in a world built on lies. That's why your life has been harder than most. Because the universe isn't making you suffer. It's tempering you. Like a blade in fire, and like a diamond under pressure. It's stripping away anything that could be used to manipulate you. Anything that could be weaponized against you. It's making sure that when you rise clean, whole, unshakable. Unshakable. And here's the part no one tells you. Once you've been weaponized by the cosmos, you don't need to fight. You become the battlefield. Your existence disrupts the old paradigms. Your breath carries codes. Your silence is louder than sermons. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. You simply are, and the truth of your being becomes undeniable. So when you find yourself back in the darkness, when life once again strips you down, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what part of my power is being reforged right now? Because after everything you've already survived, you should know by now the abyss isn't your enemy. It's your mother. It raised you. It trained you. And now it's handing you the blueprint. The question is, will you use it? The soul weapon awakens how to transcend the human story and embody the cosmic force within. There's a moment in every dark chosen one's journey when the pain stops being the primary teacher and something far deeper begins to stir, a force that doesn't speak in words, a knowing that doesn't come from the mind. It's not loud, It doesn't announce itself. It rises in the silence, in the stillness between breaths, after the storms have died down and all the identities you once clung to have crumbled. That's when the real you begins to emerge, not the human you, but the cosmic you, the soul weapon. And when that part of you awakens, everything changes. You begin to realize that you were never just here to survive your trauma, you were meant to transcend it. Not by pretending it didn't happen, not by covering it with light, but by alchemizing it into a frequency so pure, so potent, that the very fabric of reality begins to bend in your presence. But that is the moment you stop playing by the human rules. That is the moment you stop reacting to life, and you start commanding it not from ego, but from essence. Because the soul weapon doesn't fight for validation. It doesn't chase approval. It doesn't argue. It radiates. It transmits. It influences reality just by existing in its full truth. But let's not confuse this with spiritual performance. This is not about appearing powerful. This isn't about playing the role of the guru or the healer or the mystic. That's all still ego. The soul weapon doesn't need a title. It doesn't care if it's seen or recognized. In fact, it often hides in plain sight. It knows its value. It knows its mission. And it will carry that mission in silence if needed, because its impact is not measured by external metrics. But it's measured in energy, in how many timelines it shifts, in how many illusions it dissolves just by walking into a room. When you begin to embody the cosmic force within you, you'll notice that life no longer pulls you into chaos the way it used to. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. The frequency of your being becomes so coherent, so sovereign, that chaos can no longer find a hold in you. Drama stops sticking. Manipulation slides off. Old patterns dissolve because there's simply nowhere for them to anchor. Your field becomes clean, sharp, sacred. And that's when you become truly dangerous to the matrix. Because the matrix doesn't fear rebellion. It doesn't fear people who yell or protest or argue with it. It fears the ones who are free, the ones who have nothing left to lose, the ones who have faced their shadow and made peace with it, the ones who no longer seek to escape the human condition but have transcended it by embracing it fully. That's the paradox. You transcend the human story not by rejecting it, but by owning every part of it. Every heartbreak, every breakdown, every failure. You gather it all like sacred firewood, and then you burn not to destroy yourself, but to illuminate everything around you. And when you burn like that, when your soul becomes a living flame, something extraordinary happens. You start to remember your original blueprint. Not the version of you shaped by pain, but the version of you that existed before the pain. The timeless you. The architect, the observer. The force that chose this lifetime not as punishment, but as play, as mission, as transformation. You begin to see that even the darkest moments were not mistakes, they were initiations. They were perfectly placed turning points to activate dormant codes in your DNA. Each trauma was a trigger, each heartbreak a spiritual surgery, not to wound you, but to reveal you. This is the beginning of mastery, when you stop asking for the pain to end, and you start asking, what is this trying to awaken in me? That one question alone can change your entire life, because it shifts you from victim to vessel, from lost to legendary. And that's when the soul weapon sharpens itself. That's when your presence becomes precision. You'll start to notice that your words cut through illusion without effort, that your energy rearranges people's lives without you needing to teach or explain, that just by being in your field, others begin to remember who they really are. But this level of embodiment comes with responsibility, not to fix others, not to save the world, but to remain aligned with your essence, no matter what, even when no one understands you, even when you're misjudged, unseen, or left behind. Because the soul weapon doesn't need external validation to stay sharp. It sharpens itself through inner alignment, through radical integrity, through refusing to betray your truth, even when it's inconvenient, especially then. So I'll ask you this: can you stand in your full truth without needing anyone else to agree with it? Can you walk your path without applause, without an audience, without reward simply because it's yours? Can you embody the cosmic force within you without needing to prove it to anyone? Because that's when the weapon becomes fully activated, when your identity dissolves and your essence takes the lead. When you're no longer driven by fear, but by frequency. When your life becomes less about what you do and more about what you are. A living code, a walking transmission, a soul that no longer fits inside the human story because it has remembered its place in the cosmic one. And the final seal, why the world can't touch you once you become a living frequency of truth. There comes a point on the dark chosen one's path where the world no longer has hooks in you. It can't manipulate you with fear. It can't seduce you with praise. It can't bait you with illusions of success, love, or power, because you've already died to all of that. You've already stood in the fire of your own undoing and emerged not as a better version of yourself, but as someone entirely new, someone forged, someone sealed. And once you reach that state, there is a level of spiritual immunity that activates. You don't just protect your energy, you become protection itself. You don't just speak truth, you embody it. Truth, when fully embodied, becomes a living frequency that the false world cannot touch. This is the final seal. It's not something you earn through knowledge or ritual. It's something that becomes you when you've faced every shadow and no longer need to hide from any part of yourself. When you've stopped performing for the world and started living from the deepest place within you. The seal doesn't appear as a glow or an aura. It appears as stillness, as unshakable clarity, as a kind of silence inside you that no noise can disturb. It's what people feel when they meet you and can't quite explain why they feel exposed, or calm, or afraid, or deeply seen. It's not you they're reacting to, it's the frequency you've become. See, most people are still trying to protect themselves from the world. They build spiritual armor, they set boundaries, they cast circles of light, they avoid negativity. And for a time, that's necessary. But eventually you evolve beyond that. You don't need armor when your whole being becomes uninhabitable to distortion. You don't need boundaries when your presence is the boundary. You don't need to avoid darkness when darkness knows better than to come near. This is not about ego. This is about resonance, and about becoming so aligned with truth that anything untrue cannot survive in your field. It either transforms or it leaves. That's the power of the final seal. It doesn't separate you from the world. It liberates you from it. You can walk through the chaos, the noise, the illusions, and remain untouched not because you're escaping, but because you've transcended the game altogether. You're no longer playing at the level of identity, belief, or emotion. You're operating from essence, from stillness, from the part of you that was never born and can never die. But this seal comes at a cost. You lose the ability to lie to yourself. You lose the option of playing small. You lose the comfort of fitting in. Because once you embody the living frequency of truth, your life is no longer yours alone, it becomes a transmission. People will project onto you. They'll misunderstand you. They'll try to pull you back into the human drama you've transcended. And you'll have to let them. Because your job is not to be liked. Your job is to remain true and to stand as the reminder that wholeness is possible, that sovereignty is real, that freedom is not something you find, it's something you become. So I'll leave you with this. Can you live in such alignment with your soul that nothing external can move you? Can you remain soft in a world that wants to harden you? Can you be light, not the kind that blinds, but the kind that reveals? Because when you reach this level, the world can no longer touch you, not because you're protected, but because you become untouchable. You are the seal. You are the sword. You are the silence. You are the storm. You are the dark chosen, and now you remember.